to share information instead of keeping it within your organizations. So we'll talk more about that later on. Now, let me just go on so just to highlight and to repeat ourselves, Agos is a crowdsourcing platform. It's a communication and data tool, so it's two-way communication. If I were a disaster manager, I could actually say, yes, we are sending resources here to this area, or these are the areas where we pre-positioned supplies and relief teams. It provides educational content because what we do in Rappler is we tell stories. We're journalists. So anything that happens when it comes to disaster preparedness, disaster response, and climate change is a story. And we tell these stories in different ways, through video, through infographics, and of course, through just word. Social engagement is something that is critical, and I can't stress this enough. Without social engagement, any platform, any tool will not be sustainable. Why do we need social engagement? Because we are dealing with people, it affects people, and for people to really use tools like this, they have to know how it benefits them. So it's constant back and forth. You can't just put this out there and hope that everyone will use it. You have to show why it benefits the user. And that's why we also build the communities, because we realize that without community leaders, without organized communities, again, these platforms, these tools will not be sustainable. Let me just tell you a story of this mother named Riza Delgado. If you were here in the earlier session, Maria talked about this. Riza is a mother from an urban poor community in Barangay Tatalon, which is in Quezon City. She's a mother of 5. And during Typhoon Mario in 2014, she was trapped on her roof and she was pregnant. And she told us that her children had no clothes, they were wet, and they had no cell phone. They had nothing by which to communicate to other people outside. Fortunately, there was a community organizer in the area who did have a cell phone, and she reported it to another friend who had an internet connection. And this friend put it out on Twitter. And through that tweet, with the location of this mother and the urgent need that she needed to be brought to a hospital, the Red Cross team was able to respond, not even the local government team, but the Red Cross team was able to respond, pick up Riza Delgado, bring her and her family to a hospital where she later gave birth to a healthy baby girl. So many people ask us, what happens in the Philippines, not everyone is connected to the internet. Of course, we say that it's still a problem. It's not going to solve all the problems, even if we do connect to the internet. But we say that this shows the potential of how you can channel different communication avenues together, string it all together, so that you still get the same result, which is, at the end of the day, saving lives and building resiliency. Now, again, just to remind you, why are we doing this? What does a news company have to do with disaster management and social media tools? Well, like I said, we're not just a news company. We're composed of journalists, but we are also very, very into technology. And we feel that technology will be the game changer into changing the way we do things here in the Philippines. And of course, in the region and the world. Now, we can probably just tell the stories, do what we do as journalists, do our best, and just tell the stories year in and year out. But we're not really changing the narrative, right? We will always have the same typhoons, probably even more intense. We will always have the same problems of flooding, of traffic, of pollution, of climate change. So what we're trying to do in Rappler is we're trying to push the narrative further. We're trying to say, hey, these are the problems. How can we solve them? Who can we work with? What can we do? And then we'll come out, and maybe if we can solve these problems, we'll go on to more difficult problems. And that's who we are at Rappler. We're about 4 years old. We're a really young company. Thankfully, we're being recognized by the Philippines, by Filipinos, for good or bad reasons. And hopefully we can continue doing this because this is really what is in our DNA. Social media, social engagement is who we are. Now, let me just give you an example of how we do things in Rappler. And I'm going to use a very often cited model in the development world here. It's called the Bibingka. Have you ever heard of Bibingka? For our foreign guests here, if you haven't tried it, please try it. It's very delicious. Used to be only served during Christmas. Now it's served year-round, thankfully. That's progress. So Bibingka is really nice, a nice little pancake of sorts with coconut and salted egg. And the way we cook it is that we put it in a sort of makeshift oven. We put it in between two pans of hot coals, and we cook it in the middle. So we say the Bibingka model because you're really going top down and bottom up. Did I get it correctly? So how do we do it top down and bottoms up, Bibingka style? First of all, let's talk about climate change. How do we do a campaign on climate change? How do we get the people to really think about climate change using social media? Well, first of all, we do content, right? That's who we are. We're content people. So this is a video of climate change explained by a kid. And we just basically did an animation. We put a story about it. And this is available on YouTube. It's available on Rappler. You can download it. You can share it. And it's pretty easy to understand. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but when I watch this, I pretty much get what climate change is, right? And again, this is something that can be done by anyone. It doesn't have to be Rappler. It can be anybody pretty much trying to explain climate change to different sets of audiences. So this is, again, a story on Rappler which you can share, by the way. The other thing we do is we go multimedia. We go engagement. So this is a climate change calculator we did before COP21, where if you put in the number of hours you commute a day, it'll give you your carbon footprint. It'll tell you what that is equivalent to in the number of trees, how you can make up for that, and basically what you can do if you want to reduce your carbon footprint. Again, this is a story page on Rappler. You can share this. Of course, you need to be connected to the internet, but you can also download this eventually and put it on any site if you want. And it's a very simple execution. The numbers are all there. You can do this for any different kind of thing. You can do it as a game. You can do it as a quiz. In this case, we just basically did it as one long story page where you just scroll down. Okay? And every story in Rappler, by the way, has a mood meter. So that's another form of engagement. How did this story make you feel? Did it make you feel happy? Did it make you feel annoyed? And if you can do that for every story, you can pretty much figure out what do people feel about certain issues. But why is it important to know what people feel about certain issues? Why is it important to know about emotions? Well, as my boss and mentor always says, emotions really drive how you behave online. So if you're angry, you're more likely to share stories and influence other people to be angry. Or if you're happy, you're more likely to share a happy story, or maybe make someone else happy. And so that's why, when they say in the Philippines, don't be negative, it's really because anger is the most shared emotion on social media. Okay, moving on. We talked about high-level, stories, conceptual stories, and then, of course, engagement. We also go down to the ground, and this, again, is something I need to stress. I can't stress enough. It's very, very important to never forget that community organizing, on-ground, face-to-face time is still going to change hearts and minds. We often think social media is such a great amplifier. It's a multiplier because you just reach a wide audience right away. But you have to drive home the point by really talking to the people who are most affected. In this case, we went down to Tawi-Tawi, which is an island in the southern Philippines, predominantly Muslim. And we asked a group of about 5,000 youth students who were, between the ages of 18 to 35, what were the issues that affected them. And, they could have said, well, I don't get enough allowance, I don't have enough friends, I don't have, the latest cell phone. But no, the issues that they actually told us were these three: pollution, the lack of public transportation options, and corruption. So what are we saying here? If no one really asked them how they feel or what issues matter to them, then we wouldn't know, right? Because most of the time, whether we like it or not, the Philippine media is centered in Metro Manila. And it's very, very difficult, if you lived in the provinces, to get your thoughts across to people in Metro Manila, where, by the way, all the politicians and decision makers live. So in this case, we took this workshop and then we put it into a story, and the youth from this workshop were so, I guess you can say they were so energized, they even wrote a petition on change.org where they got about 500 signatures within 24 hours, and it's still growing. So here's an example of how you can do things from top down and bottoms up, because you're working on the same thing, but you're doing it at different levels. Okay, there. Now, again, we are big on social media, so we don't forget that a lot of the conversations, a lot of the thoughts that are happening online. So this is where we reach a wider audience. This is where we go beyond just, the Philippines. We look at the region, we look at the world. And in this conversation, which was called Now PH, which was a partnership with USAID, with the Climate Change Commission, and with the National Youth Commission, ahead of COP21, we asked people, what is it that you want to happen now? And what do you want the leaders to know, the world leaders to know about how climate change affects you? And we were able to generate around 136 million Twitter views, and that's big. And we were even able to map who were the influencers, who were the ones really pushing this kind of stories. I think some of you here who know Ding Dong Dantes, Commissioner Dantes of the National Youth Commission, who was also an actor, he got his friends who are actors and celebrities to tweet and to share the information about climate change to a wider audience, right? And so we actually mapped it out using our internal tool called Reach. Let me just push that there. Can you click on the next slide for there? So we were able to map it out, and you can see the circles with the bigger aura or with the bigger halo had a lot of influence. There's MovePH, you can see there. There's Rappler.com, and you can see our network in teal. There's Ding Dong Dantes. He probably has the widest with the orange. And then, of course, Alden Richards, who is a very popular actor here in the Philippines. One tweet will probably have much larger reach than one of my tweets, that's for sure. And of course, Senator Lauren Legarda. So this is the network of people who care about this issue. And it's useful for us to know, because it's useful for us to be able to map out how influence flows and who are the influencers so that we can target them and ask them, please talk about this issue. Next slide, please. So I guess the bottom line, oops, sorry, if you saw that one earlier. The bottom line for this is that if you want to run a great campaign, if you want to mobilize people and really have them take action, you need greater synergy. It can't just be a one-off thing. It can't just be a tool. It can't just be something you publish online. You need to think about it pretty much as how an advertising campaign would think about it, total engagement. Here's an example of a campaign that took a life of its own. In the Philippines, there are a lot of Filipinos who go abroad to work as domestic helpers because of poverty, because they lack options, and for all sorts of reasons. We had a Filipina who went to Malaysia, or was it Indonesia, where she got caught for trafficking drugs, allegedly for trafficking drugs. She claims that she was just a victim. Someone gave her a bag to transport, and then she got caught in Indonesia. And so she was put on death row because it's illegal to traffic drugs there. And together with about 8 other drug traffickers and drug lords, she was largely left on her own for 5 years. Now, social media didn't know about Mary Jane, that's her name, Mary Jane Veloso, until around early this last year. And when they found out about her, and Rappler helped talk about her, then it took a life of its own, and people wanted to hashtag Save Mary Jane. And so the campaign to save Mary Jane got so loud that aside from protests in Manila, they also staged some protests in Indonesia. And I think if anyone asks me, the Indonesians were critical because they were the ones who actually influenced their leaders, to spare Mary Jane's life. And so today, after a 11th hour wait to see what would happen to Mary Jane, her 8 other accused were brought to the death, I guess you could call it the firing squad. Mary Jane was saved, and today she lives. Of course, she's still in jail, so the campaign continues. But she's an example of what social media can do, what a movement can do online to take on real action. Next slide. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk briefly about Philippine elections because it's something that we're really, we're so concerned about today. And how in Rappler we see social engagement happening to educate the public about elections. Let's go to this slide. So we call it PH Vote. It's a campaign online. Again, it includes online and on-ground activities. And basically, it allows our readers to be guided in the election path, from registration to knowing who the candidates are, to eventually voting, and then afterwards to be able to guard your vote or to guard the candidates, to make sure the candidates deliver on their promises. So one of the things that you can do, aside from knowing who the candidates are, is to match your candidates, and we call it the candidate. It's the Tinder for politicians. Are you a match with your politician? Let's see. So if you go, next slide please, if you go to the candidate page, see if I can pull it up. Yeah, can we click on the next slide? Yeah. So you see who's running for president. You can click on any two of these people, and it will show you where they stand on certain issues. Or if you want to take the candidate for a date, next slide, please. You can choose any of these 4 issues, or choose 2 of 4 issues, and then you tell us what you believe in. So, for example, this is me. Do I want to scrap the visiting forest agreement? No. Do I want to jointly develop with China? No. No offense to China. Do I want to stop giving permits to coal? Yes. And all of that. And once you fill out these 7 questions, 7 simple questions, our candidate page will tell you who you might want to date. So among these 2, these are the 2 people that mostly agree with my stand on issues. And then, of course, you can add as many issues as you want. So that's candidate. And it's interactive. It's cool. It's not going to tell you everything you need to know, but it's a cute way to start. Next slide, please. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, which I'm really excited about, is X, Rappler X. So previously, all of the things that we've talked about before required Rappler or someone in Rappler to initiate, whether it was a story, an on-ground movement, or anything like that. But we thought, why not just give it to everyone? Let the public decide what it is, what's important. At the risk of making our jobs extinct, we've created a platform where anyone pretty much can post anything on Rappler, and we call it Rappler X. And it's your self-publishing platform, your blog, but it's not just a blog. It's actually you building your community using the tools that we've already talked about in Rappler X, on Rappler. Next slide. So people can post like this, I have no president, and it's their opinion, or it can be a news report, or it can be something that they saw, a picture or video, and of course you can share that. You can publish it. No editor touches it, but you publish it at the risk of everyone else criticizing you or commenting, because you can comment at the bottom. But what's more powerful about this kind of platform, and scary at the same time, is that you can reach out and know who are the people who are reading you and who are the people who have the same interests as you. So similar to the map that I showed earlier, as a tip, we try to integrate Rappler X with everything that we do. So for example, if we have a campaign or a call out, we have this campaign to highlight the tourist spots in the Philippines. We'll ask people, tell us what the best tourist spots are in your area, post it on Rappler X. And that way, it's really authentic. It comes from each of you. You telling the public what you think is the best tourist spot in your area. So I was saying earlier that you can know who your community is. And how do you do that? On Rappler X, you can actually see who is reading you and what they are saying or what they are posting. And it's a live network map. You can reach out to them. You can comment on their stories. And you can probably build your own community. Eventually, you can probably do things together. We'll build in places where you can meet up, activities that you can organize, similar to how Facebook allows you to create events, right? So this is finding who think and agree with you, and also who disagree with you, so that you can engage them. And this is where the editors don't have any say in this. In fact, what we've seen in Rappler X is that aside from people posting political ads, we've seen people really just venting their anger at a certain government agency, so it deals with corruption, at a particular problem in their community, which could be about pollution, and different things that matter to them at the micro level. So you amplify that times how many communities in the Philippines, and everyone now has a voice. Everyone now has a say in what they are going to do and how they can do it. So that, in a nutshell, is how we do engagement and how we think about the future of social media. It's evolving. We don't really know for sure what it's going to look like in 5 years. But definitely with disaster risk reduction, climate change, we need to work better together. We need to collaborate. We need to partner with different people, with different experts, and get the message out there that it can't be business as normal. If you really want to achieve a zero casualty rate in the Philippines in the future, in the near future, then we can't do things as we've done them before. In fact, we have to do things faster and with a quicker sense of urgency. So I'll leave you with these links. Please check out Rappler if you haven't checked it out yet. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Zach.